back at you and gloves off, and today we have Webb County candidate for Judge Poncho Casso. How are we doing, Poncho?
I'm doing well. Thanks for inviting me. I'm glad we finally get together. To talk about the issues.
Sure. Anytime you want to come on, just come out here. Whether you're running, not running, judge, not come out here, and we can talk about everything that goes on in Laredo.
That you have this show because it's a great public service, for the community, because that's what we need. We need more. We need more programs like this to get the word out. To talk about the issues, and that's the reason I'm running. I'm running because I wanted to have a conversation with this community about a lot of issues, grievances that I have, against this government that I believe is run amok, and that's why I decided to get in the race.
Well, thank you for doing that. Number one, thank everybody who's running. You have to stand up, and to stand up against those that are already elected in there, and to stand up and voice your opinion, it's very hard to do.
Yeah,
and,
it is.
Number one, thanks for that. Thank you for standing up.
Well, you're welcome.
Let's touch base. You were you were a city councilman, right?
I was a city councilman from 1994 to 98. I ran one term for council, and after that, I had run for mayor twice. I ran for it was a 2-month or 3-month term.
Okay.
And then I ran for the 4-year term.
Okay.
So it was grueling, and that's when you run for mayor twice within 4 months. Because Saud had left, he'd gotten a job. The mayor had gotten a job in Washington D.C. He was appointed to be deputy of Secretary of HUD. So we needed to have a special election. So it's not my first rodeo running citywide. It's just not. I mean, the county's a little bit larger, but most of the voters come from Laredo anyway.
Sure. Laredo has changed, because when you were city councilman, I was away in college and so on and so forth, and so when I left, Laredo didn't have the big neighborhoods it has now. It's changed. It's changed in a lot of different aspects. Let me say hi to a couple of people. Frank Castillo, how are you? Alicia, Esteban. Good to have you guys in here. If you guys want to call in, the number's going to be on the screen up here. If you guys do not have Facebook, download Border Indie app, and you guys can listen to us. It's a great app. There's other shows that are in there, and it's phenomenal little place to do. Let's touch base on some other things. Sorry for interrupting. What made you say, you know what, I'm going to run for county judge? What is going on that made you say, you know what, I have to really stand up now?
The thing that really got me upset was 3 years ago, June 22nd. June 22nd, 2015. You see, the question wasn't even rehearsed, but I know the exact date.
What happened?
I saw how they violated Leo Flores' Webb County auditor, who, by the way, the auditor is the most powerful man in county government, if you understand how it functions.
Right.
These guys don't like that. So they violated his First Amendment rights. They kicked him out of the room. They ejected him out of the courtroom. And on the way out, they accused him of theft, and then they decided to try to get him indicted. So they went through the whole process. The Texas Rangers go to the DA. It was a dog and pony show. And it just, and if you see that video today, which I have, it will cause a real negative reaction against my opponent.
You see,
and that did it. And then I said, okay, but you just can't run because, the First Amendment right is everything. To
Correct.
Me, it's everything. It's the basis of everything. And I went through a lot of that when I was in the city council, because they always try to put the muzzle on me, and they could never do that. Because I'll stand up against anybody. I don't care who you are. It's just, if I feel that you're wrong on the issues, I want to bring it out. It's just the way it is. So then I said, what is really, how can I help people? Because I'm not going to run unless I can help you. For me, one of the things that gives me the greatest pleasure is when people come up to me and tell me, you know what, we're with you because you helped us. And it's just the common folk. You helped us. You helped us. You really helped a lot of people. You were for the people. I always hear that. So how can I help you all? Well, I'll tell you how I can help you. I can freeze your taxes. And that's the basis of my whole campaign. That right there as the foundation opens it up to everything else. The corrupt bargains, the corruption, the cronyism, the nepotism, the cynicism that exists in this community. It opens it all. So it's so that's really what it is. I want to help the folks in this community, and I know how to do it. And if I'm able to freeze it, and let's say I get elected,
okay,
what's going to happen is all the other taxing authorities are going to follow. They're eventually going to follow because there's going to be a lot of pressure. Because I think there's going to be I think there's going to be a tax revolt in this community. I already feel it. I think there's a perfect storm brewing.
I think there's going to be a lot of revolts, not only in this community, in a lot of communities, and that is why they're after another amendment, which is the second, because that's the only thing that keeps everybody in check. The first is protected by the second.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is, and people do not like it. Some of the elitists do not like it. Some of the left does not like it. They don't want it. And unfortunately, that's the only thing that keeps us in check in the United States, which is the number one country in the world. And I think we're moving on that line now. And once, I'm going to talk a little bit. When I lived in France, I went to school in France, and I used to see, and I traveled around the country because I represented the United States in the sport that was in its infancy at that time. You went everywhere else. People had a bad idea towards America. And I came back with a sense in my head of, you know what, we as a people have to change our attitude. Let me tell you why. Because when we realize that the remainder of the world actually hates us, they love our money because we send them, then we will be better off living. Okay? We're not liked around the world.
When I was in France, they didn't really like us, but I'll tell you what, I never said I was from the United States. I always said I was from Texas. Everybody knows
in Texas. And that was a different story. Yeah. That's what separated you.
It's that mystique of Texas, the Western, the Hollywood.
Of course. Of course.
That's what. So I'm from Texas. They knew Texas more than anything else,
Yeah. No, you're absolutely correct. But coming back here, we live in a wonderful state. We have a great culture in Laredo. You have an old family here in Laredo, and those old Tejanos and being bred out or something's going on. We don't see them as many, right? Of course, we have a lot of people coming in, from a lot of other states and from Mexico and other countries and so on and so forth. So that's being bred out. But what's staying is the corruption and that oppressive tactics of our governments that we have. How are you, if elected, how are you going to change that?
Well, what you're talking about primarily exists in Laredo, the culture of corruption, because why does it? It's not because that's all they know, but it's part of our bossyism. It's you study bossyism. That's, in fact, I was writing a book, but I haven't finished it. And it was in the 1940s, and it's what was happening in the 1940s here in Webb County. And it's fascinating because I've already corrected some historians, and I had some societies look over my paper,
sure.
And because I really wanted to publish a paper. It said it was too long, that it was a making of a book, and it had to do, and I corrected like Robert Caro, who wrote the 4-volume biography on LBJ, and I corrected him because he talked about ballot box 13, and that's what I was focusing on, ballot box 13 and what was happening during that time. And why is it we have so much corruption? It's because our proximity to Mexico.
Okay.
Mexico it's a way of life over there.
Sure.
And Laredo was founded before Laredo was Mexico.
Sure.
That's why you have Nuevo Laredo, New Laredo, because everybody lived over here. We were on it's a higher bank. So everybody was located here, and they lived on both sides. But this is where Laredo was. Laredo was part of Mexico. Was founded
on this side
of the border, and then they drew the line of demarcation, you know, during the treaty,
Sure.
and that's some people actually. You hear those stories that some people they went to their graves and, you know, took the bodies and buried their relatives on the other side. I mean, because they felt that they were, you know,
Sure.
they felt they were true
Sure.
Mexicans. But it's the culture's because of our proximity to Mexico, and because, you know, this was Mexico. And how do you break it? I think by example.
Yeah.
By example. And exposing everybody and saying this is wrong, not turning a blind eye, which is what everybody does, because everybody's scared. Hey, I'm supporting you, but just don't tell anybody because it'll hurt my business. I get that all the time. I say, fine, I'll be your cover. It doesn't matter. You know, all I care is you go and vote, because nobody knows how you vote.
Listen, and that is exactly right. And I've seen both from the city and certain elements from the county. Not everybody, because number one, to me, the county, the five that are sit on top of the table, the county court, they really don't oversee what happens with the sheriff department. What they see, what happens with the constables, and what they don't see, they don't oversee that. They don't know. And if they do, they turn a blind eye, as you say. But I've seen a lot of oppression under the color of law to a lot of small businesses, because they'll come in there and they'll forcefully put a sign on you, and then you take it off, and then they'll come in there and they'll threaten you, and so on and so forth. And that they keep a lot of, I'm going to use this term, asusta pendejos. You know, so they have a lot of people. They have a lot of people scared, and they don't they don't stand up. And I think that goes back to what you were talking about, Bossyism. And I think that culture's still here. It's still alive.
Yeah, there's books written on it. I've read a lot about them. I have a huge, you know, I collect books. It's my hobby, so I have over 2,500 volumes. And I collect books on whatever interests me, rare, out of print, but mainly just to read. It doesn't matter. And, you know, I'm fascinated with Bossyism. You know, what the roots of Bossyism and why it's so prevalent in South Texas. You know, the Parr families, all these old families. But I think what you have to do is you have to set the example. And one of the things that I liked when I was in the city council is that people would just mention my name to staff and say, I'm going to go to Poncho Casso if you all keep abusing me. And they would take care of the problem. The problem got taken care of strictly by fear of having them come to me. Because if you're wrong, I'm going to tell you you're wrong, you know. And the same goes with, you know.
And that's the way it should be. I think we all need to lead by example. We need to be truthful, okay? It's I understand that when deals get made, when contracts are made, when projects are being formed, when contracts are being formed, I understand all what goes behind it. And I understand how things are done. But what a lot of people do not want to voice their opinion because they're afraid.
They're scared.
They're scared.
Yeah.
And you see it now with the voting. You see it with the voting. People will not go out there and vote. And this runoff election, if 5,000 comes up, I owe you a beer. We'll go get a beer. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, they're scared. And I've had people that want to help me. And you ought to see the excuse. They'll say they're going to help you on Facebook. And really, it's a rhetorical question. Kind of like, how can I help? But they're really just saying, you got my support, I'm going to vote for you. But when you actually confront them, say, hey, yeah, I'd like you to help, you ought to see the excuses they'll make. Yeah. Some of them will go to the extent of lying about their health.
No.
It's amazing.
You know.
And I don't judge them for that, because I understand there's fear. There's a lot of fear. And I you know, with me, I don't have that. It's just the way it is with me. It's I don't fear any, I'm just going to go out there and do what I think. It's what you believe, and I have this core belief system that's based on morality. That's what my campaign is. It's a moral campaign, and anybody who wants to challenge me on that, come on, I'll because we're going to talk about some moral issues here that I don't like. Like one of the things that got me involved is when you flush money you flush the taxpayers' money down the river, and you could have used, and nobody in this community benefits from it because of your incompetence. That's just, it's a sin. because you could have given that money to the Bethany House to house the homeless. You could have given it to the food bank to feed the hungry, and you're not doing that because you're incompetent. Yeah, it is a moral campaign. We're going to talk about it. And we're going to talk about a lot of other stuff that I don't like. When you make incompetent decisions, like breaking every interlocal agreement that we've had, that I had in place when I was on the city council with the county, and you can't even work together with a county, with a city anymore, and yet you want to build a bridge and throw another $2-3 million you've already thrown, and you've already had 4 county judges, like I mentioned on my platform. You don't have an international bridge. Those kind of things, we need to have a conversation about that. We have to talk about it as a community. What is going on here? Why are we flushing all our money down the river and nobody benefits from it? It's wrong.
Sure. No, you're absolutely correct.
I challenge anybody to tell me, you know, and a lot of them will hide behind the religion and Christianity and all this stuff. Well, you know what? There's no ethical code. There's nothing in Scripture to defend what's going on today in county government.
Actually, Matthew says what Caesar's is Caesar's and what's God's God's. It's totally two different. It's separate back then as well. So two different things. So when I understand what you're talking about. I understand.
So what is it that fuels me? It's not that I think I'm better than anybody else, or I'm not perfect, but I know that we can do better. We need to challenge ourselves. Put some goals in place that's going to reduce taxation, because it's a burden right now. And the way you're going to stop corruption is to stop overfeeding the beast. You have to stop overfeeding the beast. Freeze the taxes. And I'm going to freeze those taxes because I know how to do it. Because they've been lying to you. They raised your taxes 9.5% just at the county level. They raised them 9.5%. And so when somebody says, like my opponent says, I balanced the budget without raising your taxes. Well, first of all, that's not true. You raised the taxes, and you didn't balance anything because you had to raise taxes. You know what I mean? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. What did you balance? If you use the effective rate, you'd be bringing in the same amount of revenue you brought in the year before, not including the additional revenue in the increase in the tax base. So why do you need to tax us 9.5% every year and then go lie about it? I mean, they need to challenge themselves and say, okay, let's freeze the taxes and let's see where we can rein in the expenses and shift certain expenses around. But the way they're doing it now, they're just robbing Peter to pay Paul. That's all they're doing.
Yeah, I believe that the county's going to go under. I believe that a big, how can I say?
Well, you're not the only one that's mentioned that. There's others.
I believe that we're just in the little tip top, and we're going to fall inside that volcano. It's going to be hell on Webb County for a good while. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's something bad's coming, and we're just finishing the calm of the storm.
I mean, they get in a lawsuit with every other elected official there. You know, the county judge and the commissioners get in lawsuits with the county attorney, district attorney, the district judges over bailiffs, employees, and the tax assessor. Then they try to jail the auditor. If you can't even get along with your auditor, you got a problem, because your auditor is your revenue estimator, and you still have to deal with the auditor. That's what makes the auditor so powerful. Not only that he can audit you anytime he wants, and he can demand that you give him the records he wants, or he could get you thrown in, get you arrested.
Right.
But it's the fact that he estimates your revenue. So even if you create a separate budget department, which they claim they did and they haven't, they call it a business development office. It's a joke, the way they have it set up. It's a complete joke, and they're not really doing the right analysis. So if I get elected, I'm going to work with the auditor. First thing I'm going to do is come and audit Commissioner's Court. I'm not going to go in there without getting it audited. They've broken interlocal agreements with the city, so they've raised the cost.
Like which one? Which one
the
of those
fire
agreements?
department, okay? We had, let me tell you, when I was on the city council, we had a joint meeting with Commissioner's Court. Mercurio Martinez was a judge at the time, and
Sure.
he's a good friend of mine. I talk to him all the time. And we had a drawn-out fight. It was heated. We had it in city council chambers, and it got heated. And but we didn't break the contract. They wanted to pay less. We wanted more money. Kind of the same thing that was going on now. But at the end of the day, it's the same taxpayer. Whether the money comes from the left pocket or the right pocket, it's still the same taxpayer. So we kept the interlocal agreement. Not this time. They broke it. What they should have done is they should have had a regional fire department, because eventually we're going to bleed into the city's going to bleed into it. So what's going to happen? You're going to have double departments. Yep. It's like having two police departments. It just doesn't make any sense.
And how many do we have here in Laredo?
You mean
we have TAMIU, LCC, LISD, UISD, Laredo Police Department, Airport Police. I think there's.
You had interlocal agreements, you save a lot of money. And then the other thing is animal control, environmental services. They broke those also. I understand there's no animal control outside the city limits. There was somebody, I think it was...
The sheriff used to have something with it.
Well, the sheriff says he can't, you can't blame him, it's like due to resources and whatever, and what he's explained as to why he can't do it. But there was another county official, I don't know if it's the examiner, that she came out and said they're killing all her goats at her ranch, the feral dogs and all of this. So they've broken those interlocal agreements, and yet they want to have the biggest agreement of all by building a joint bridge together. Let me tell you, there's only one person right now that has any experience that's running for office that negotiated building a bridge, going to Mexico City, going with all those federal agents. You're looking at him. It's me.
Sure.
And they're not going to get a bridge. They want another source of revenue. It's not going to happen. And the last thing we want is the county meddling in there. Then you're going to have lawsuits between the county and the city, because they can't. Everything that the county touches turns into dust. I mean, look, they had the Fernando Community Center there. 1.2 million. It took a newly elected councilman, Albert Torres, to bring it up and threaten that he wanted, the city wanted its property back and wanted 600,000. It takes them about 15 years to get the project going. 15 years, and then after they do that, they just abandon it. They can't even get that. They want to build a bridge together, and they can't even do that right. And it's full of rats and everything else. And here I'm talking about. This is what I'm saying. You're going to spend $1.2 million of tax dollars. You're going to leave that building there to rot. That's a sin. It's a major sin what you're doing right there. It's wrong. And somebody's got to step up and say it's wrong. Then they go and they knock a building, the annex building over there. They knocked it down. Shouldn't have done that. But now they want to buy the HEB building. But then they got empty property over there next to the Justice Center. So what are these guys thinking? What are they doing? I mean, they just seem to lack common sense. I'm really disappointed. So if I was to get elected, I'm going to try to restore a lot of interlocal agreements with the city. I mean, we're not going to duplicate services. There's no reason to duplicate services. It's the same taxpayer. 90% of Webb County's taxpayer comes from the city of Laredo. So why, when you get in a fight with the city and you want to charge it more, it's coming from the same taxpayer. What's the problem?
Yep.
Work it out.
You're absolutely correct.
It doesn't make any sense.
You're absolutely correct. I mean, it's the duplication of services and departments. That's the problem there.
Yeah, and I understand some people don't want to lose their jobs and everything else, but they should have created a regional fire department. They shouldn't have done what they did, and then they put a fire station over there in my opponent's father-in-law's ranch just to help the value of the land. I mean, come on, that's a corrupt bargain right there. Everybody knows about it. Everybody talks about that. Nobody wants to say it. Well, I'm saying it. So what? I don't like it. You duplicated services to benefit your family. Is that what it was all about, or what was it really about? Is it really that it was more expensive? I mean, let's talk about it, because there's no reason that you could not come to a consensus and maintain that interlocal agreement. We don't need 2 fire chiefs. We don't need 2 fire departments. Now, you're creating another department.
Sure.
And, you know, it doesn't mean you still can't merge them, but I've spoken to the fire chief here. He was there when he was a firefighter when I was on the city council, so I know all these folks.
Yeah. What else do you see? What else do you see and say, you know what, this is another wrong that, or an apparent wrong that we have to fix?
I think the budget is a big problem. And if you're going to operate under subchapter C and have your own budget department and take that away from the auditor the way they did, then you need to set it up right. And I don't think it's set up right. I think you have former chiefs of staffs from a previous administration in there, and they're getting stipends. You have the current chief of staff doing it there. You need to have if you're going to do that, you need to create a permanent budget office that you're not going to be replacing them with your cronies every time someone gets elected. It doesn't happen with a city. You got to maintain some type of semblance of order there,
sure.
Continuity, so that you have professional staff there. You don't have staff there simply because they're your friends. Mm-hmm. You put qualified staff there, and you restructure it. So I think the budget's going to be. If I want to freeze taxes, the first thing I'm going to have to do is go in there and try to reorganize that budget department, and the commissioners may not let me. They may not let me because you still need a majority vote to do that.
Sure.
But I'll tell you what, I can study the numbers better than anybody. And you see, I'm not going to go hire somebody and pay them $100,000 when I can do a lot of it. You're already going to pay me $95,000. So what? You think I'm going to? You're going to see me crunching numbers. So any way they cut it, they can't stop me, because I analyze the numbers and I'll work with the auditor, carne y uña, as they say. And you know what? We're going to be educating the public as to what's happening, so that you see the problem before it happens. Because you know, like you said, they're on the verge of bankruptcy, and it's going to happen, and they're going to get caught with their pants on, just like they did with the $8 million deficit. The other thing I want to do is create a mineral fund. I want to separate all the mineral revenues from the general fund and create a separate fund. Why? Because that's a non-renewable source of energy. Those monies are going to dry up, so you need to separate it, because you have to do trend analysis. You have to study what's happening with the trends. You can go back and see who were the top 10 taxpayers 10 years ago, and look who they are today. If you don't study all of that, you don't study the numbers, what happened 10 years, where you are today, you're going to make some major mistakes. And my goal is to freeze your taxes. So this is what will happen. If your valuation doesn't go up, your taxes go down. If your valuation goes up, it freezes it. That is the mathematical equation. That's what it does when you use the effective rate. And that's what I have to do. I have to educate the folks about that. I'll freeze your taxes. You know, some will see a decrease, but the thing I can guarantee is it'll freeze it if you use the effective rate.
Let's touch base on the mineral. How have you studied that? Have you seen where it's coming from? Are we using our mineral resources correctly?
Well,
both land-wise and.
What's happening with the revenues is that when you get 25% of your revenues from minerals, you got a problem. I mean, it's great, we're blessed, but you got a problem if you don't wean yourself from that revenue source.
Sure.
You should use that for capital assets, capital improvement projects, because it's going to finish. It's going to happen. And that's what happened a year ago when they had an $8 million deficit. So what do? They try to balance the budget on the backs of the workers, which is wrong, on the workers and the families of the workers by cutting their benefits. That's not going to happen under me. So I don't want to hear this stuff that he balanced the budget and all of that. Well, yeah, you balanced it on the backs of the workers of Webb County. That's what you did, and their families, by cutting their benefits. And then they come out, well, there was too many claims. You know what? there's a lot of stuff going on there. There's so many problems right now with Webb County. You could go study the risk management. That's another area. You can go and you go from department to department. But so there's a lot of work. Whoever gets selected, it's not going to be pretty and it's not going to be fun.
Let me answer two questions are coming out. Both Renee and Jesse are asking, will there be any debates?
Oh, I think the more the better. The more the merrier for me. I mean, I like debates. And just keep it clean, and that's what I've been telling everybody. I'm going to stick to the issues. If you're going to resort to ad hominem attacks, which is a Latin term, which means when you can't win on the issues, then resort to the politics of personal destruction, and that's what happened in the last election between Patricia and Tano. They were just attacking each other because they probably didn't have a platform of any political credibility. I know my opponent doesn't, and that's what happened. And I'm not going to let that happen. I'm not going to get stuck in the weeds, but make no mistake about it. If you hit me, I'm going to hit you back, and I'm going to hurt you. And that's not, and like I said, they can take me out of context. They can make as many commercials they want. This is not a game. You better stick to the issues. You better stick to the issues. That's what this campaign is going to be about. It's going to be a referendum on the issues. It doesn't matter what party you're from. Doesn't matter what your background. It's about issues. That's what this is about.
Let's look at that, because you mentioned something right now. It doesn't matter what party you're from. Actually, it shouldn't. It shouldn't. But here in Laredo, it does. And right now, we've seen what the Democratic Party is doing. We've seen how it's going. We've seen, only the Democrats, ran this past general election, right? They were the only ones here.
There's no competition from another party,
exactly.
Which causes there's no checks and balances.
So what happens? Now we got a senator. Now we got the county judge looking after voter fraud. What do you think about that?
God, I called you about that when I heard him, my opponent on your show, and I thought, oh my God, this is laughable. What a phony. And I put something out on Facebook on it. It's just a joke. I mean, if anybody right now has all the cañoneros on the payroll, it's my opponent. Make no mistake about it. That's just the fact. Yo sé cómo corre el agua. Okay? I know who's who, been around.
Right.
And he has them on the payroll. So, getting in front, and he wants to be the poster boy for the practice of illegally purchasing votes, it's a joke. Come on. He's been doing it. So I think it was nothing more. Somebody told me he was being investigated. That's what I heard. I heard he's the subject of the investigation, so he got himself out in the front to make it look like he's fighting it. But then I hear he wanted to put those cameras up there, and I understand those cameras were not working. He put cameras inside where they were storing the early votes. I understand they weren't working. So, I think he's just a phony. Voter fraud. Give me a break.
But let's talk about voter fraud, the issue. Do you think it exists here?
It does. But it does exist when you pay people for the vote. That's illegal.
Right.
That's voter fraud. Now, people are talking about the mail-in. That's not your problem. Your problem is people that buy the vote. They go and pay money. They pay $100, $50. They go give you something so that you go vote. Taking them to vote is not illegal, but when you give them money, it is illegal. And there's a lot of that going on. So, that's a problem. And that's harder to detect. It's harder to arrest somebody on that type of a charge. But that's the voter fraud. Yeah, it exists in the mail-in. I think that's what they got in, and then he was attacking his opponent in the Democratic primary. Well, his father lives in the same neighborhood. What is that? What does his opponent having lived there what does she have anything to do with that, I mean, it just didn't make any sense, but he's getting behind it, getting free publicity, and he's trying to look like he's the same when he's a guy that, it's like the kid that throws a rock at a glass house and breaks a window and says, look what happened, but it wasn't me. Or really? I mean, yeah. Come on. I mean, he practices nepotism like crazy in the county right now. I mean, everybody knows that he put his father, well, not everybody, but he put his father there in the law library. His father didn't even have any experience run. He put his father there and gave him a raise over a woman who had a master's in library science. You told me that's not corruption? That is corruption. Oh, but don't talk about my family. What are you talking about? Nobody's talking about your family. Nobody's attacking your family. When your family gets tax dollars, it becomes our business. When your family gets paid by the taxpayer and you're practicing nepotism, it is our business. It's not dirty campaigning. It's the facts. You're not going to see me hiring my mother. It's wrong. It's just wrong. And that's what he did, because his father was working in the Veterans Department and they ousted him out of there. There was something going on, and so he made the phone call to transfer him over to the law library. Now they retired him. But that's just a complaint you hear everywhere. They've just got too much family working there. They're everywhere. You hear that all the time.
Again, we live in Laredo. We have some families.
And everybody's related to everybody. So in one way or the other. Exactly. But, I don't want to hear that you're not corrupt when you got your father there and you're that's just an example, okay?
No, I understand. I understand. Talking away from nepotism, where do you see Webb County in 20 years?
God, I mean, I don't even know if I'll be around.
No. Where do you see? Because you were here in the 90s, and now you're here 20 years now, and you're running. Where do you see Webb County going? Where do you see? How do you project something?
If I get elected, or if I don't get elected?
No, the way right now. How do you see it?
Oh, we're going to be in bad shape. And I don't mean to be the prophet of gloom and doom here, but, that's really what someone who's running for office is basically he's basically preaching to the masses, wake up, wake up. Yeah. That's what I'm doing. I'm just basically preaching to everybody, and I have to educate everybody, and it's going to be hard because yesterday I was at the gym, and somebody tells me, well, I hope, I live in LISD, he said, in the LISD district, because he mentions that he lives in the Heights. He said, well, I live in the best area, he says. So I said, why? Because we have the lowest rates. Unless that bond issue passed. I said, what are you talking about? It passed 2 weeks ago. Yeah. The guy didn't even know that the bond election had passed, and now it's going to raise LISD's tax rate 14 cents higher, which now puts them higher than UISD. And he didn't know. This is what I'm facing. That is what I'm facing. I have to go educate the folks, go door to door. It's very difficult. It's time consuming. You got to have the resources and the army to help you do it, the volunteer army, unless you're like my opponent that you can pay people to help you, But that's not the same as getting true volunteers that don't take money from you,
No, you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct.
So it's hard.
It's hard, and you have a long battle.
And then I'm running as a Republican, so people don't even know that I was running. Some people think I still live in Austin. I've been living in Austin. I've been living in Laredo since 2011. I've been here for the last 7 years. People think I'm still out of town, and then they say, we didn't know you were running. How can that be? Because they don't even understand, because they're so used to just having elections in the primary. Whoever wins, it's over. But now you have a completely different animal, because you have a general election. You're going to have the mayor's race with 4 council members. You're going to have some referendums. It's going to bring out a lot of people. And the more people you can get to the polls, the harder it is for the crooks to buy elections. It's harder.
Is it all going to run on the same?
Same day.
Same ballot?
Different ballots. You get one ballot from the county, and you get one ballot from the city. And that's the way it's supposed to be, because one is nonpartisan and one is.
Well,
but I think it's going to be helpful for me. But yes, there's people that come to me all the time to me. You're not going to win. You can't win. I mean, I hear that all the time. I said, well, you never know. Maybe we'll pull an upset. Maybe we won't. But the fact is that we're going to shed some light on the shenanigans that these folks have been doing, and we're going to expose them for what they are, and we're going to stick to some issues. And I think he's going to have a problem when I'm telling you that I want to freeze your taxes, and he's over there trying to find an alternative source of revenue, and I'm coming over here and I'm saying I'm going to freeze them. They right now don't know what to do. They don't know what to do.
But yeah, you're absolutely correct.
I don't know how they're going to deal with me with that. They're going to try to. I mean, and you know what? Go get your experts, line them up, get your 20 brains over there, line them up. And I'm being humble about it. Line them up. But I'm going to freeze those taxes, and I know how to do it, and I know what's fair, and I know what's right, and we're going to do it. And I don't want to hear that it can't be done, because it can be done. It can be done because I'm bringing in the same revenue from the year before. Plus, I'm still bringing in more. I'm still bringing in more because of the increase in the tax base. If you can't balance the budget, that means you never balanced the budget. You only balanced it on paper, but you really never balanced it. So why does he keep taxing us 9.5%? You know, I mean, why did he do that? And then he claims that he didn't raise your taxes.
I know the jail issue lost because of
it was too much. I'll tell you about that in a minute too. I got a story on the jail.
And then you have everybody complaining about their ad valorem taxes going up. Everybody. So.
Well, that's the perfect storm. It's almost like.
That's what I'm telling you. So this election is going to be an issue on taxes. What's going to happen to our taxes?
Well, let me tell you about the jail. I had a consulting contract by one of the largest builders of jails in the world. They build jails in Afghanistan. They hired me just to make the introductions. So I had a meeting with Tano and Galo and Uribe, and it was two gentlemen I brought it that came down here. And you know what they told them? They said, look, you can float 125 million, 140, whatever that we're going to float, but that's not your problem. It's the M&O, maintenance and operation. You won't be able to afford to do it. You can pay for it. It's like you buying a $10 million house. It's like I had a friend in Austin who had I think it was like a $3 or $4 million house he inherited from his grandfather, but he couldn't pay the taxes. The taxes were like $20,000 a year, $40,000 a year. He couldn't pay them, so he had to sell the house. It's the same thing. You build something and you have to maintain it. So they told him flat out, but they still put it on the ballot, and they got beat. And those voters are diehard voters. Those voters, I don't think are going to vote for my opponent.
Those voters that voted there,
that voted against that jail, are going to vote against my opponent.
Are the voters that every so often just come out, the silent vote that every so often
that
comes
was an
out
anger. That's an angry vote. And you're going to see the same thing in this election regarding taxation. They're going to be they're angry right now, and they're going to be angrier. Why? Because you're going to find out soon enough how many people went to protest, and they're going to get denied. They're not going to get what they want, not all of them. And so they're going to be upset. And then the South is going to come into play because their valuations are going to be 17% higher. So now you've got a class war going on. You got a problem between the North and the South. That's what you've got. And that's where they buy the vote. It's in the South. So you have a lot of dynamics going on. And I don't know if these guys understand what's happening, but I know how to run I know how to work the barrios. So, we're going to have some fun, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to have some fun. But this is going to be a very heated election. But I'm hoping they keep it clean. They keep it on the issues. Because once they start trying to get me off my track, you're not going to get me off my game plan. But like I said, I'll punch you back hard. I don't care. I mean, I'll teach you a lesson. If you want to be taught a lesson, that's what your show is called, Gloves Off. You take the gloves off. I really don't care. I mean, for me, I only care about one thing. So I'm going to help this community. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to freeze your taxes.
And that's what
if you want to pay more, vote for my opponent. If you want your taxes frozen and you want to pay less, vote for me. You choose. This election is not about Poncho Casso. It's about you and what you're going to do.
I see a bunch of stuff that's crumbling in all the different departments there in the county. And unfortunately, we're in a bad position. Not only in the county, in the city in general. There's a lot of stuff here that people are now waking up and saying, you know what? Not on my watch. Wait a minute. People that never voiced an opinion are now standing up and saying, guess what? I don't like that.
Well, the county also shouldn't be behaving as a home rule municipality. It's not a home rule municipality. You're not a city. You're never going to be a city. It's like trying to make Laredo Austin. Laredo's never going to be Austin. Embrace your own, the positive things you have.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct.
Don't try to be somebody else.
But what happened was a lot of them went to Austin and came back.
Yeah,
and
well,
they come back with
10 years,
and they come back and they have this, some come back with this 6th Street mentality that, wait a minute, sorry, but it doesn't happen.
And it's fine that they want to make downtown like a little 6th Street. I think
we need it. We
need it. I'm for that.
I'm all for that. Listen, I'm an entrepreneur. I've had restaurants. I've dealt with that. I understand what it is. But what I'm saying, it's a different attitude, okay? And it's that attitude like, you don't like it, but it's what I want. Well, wait a minute. Like, now we have this bike issue.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's going to be a cluster.
I'm for bike lanes and everything, but if it means reducing our vehicular infrastructure, then I'm not for that.
It's a bad element.
That's bad. If you're going to start turning 4 lanes into 2 lanes, that's wrong.
If it's a safety issue and it's going to protect cyclists, yes.
Yeah.
But if it's going to protect the cyclists that only come out on Sunday afternoon, running around there with a little group of friends up and down, going and go to Starbucks and get coffee and then come back, no. But if it's for the person that needs to go to school, the kid that's going to school.
Well, it's not a Chinese village where everybody's in bicycles. When I used to work for Sony Corporation, I went to Hong Kong, went to Japan, and I went to China because I said, well, I want to just say I went to China. So you know where I went? I didn't get to go to Beijing because I didn't have the time, right? But I went into these 2 villages. I went to Shekou and Shenzhen. Little did I know, but I did want to go because they were special economic zones. The Chinese were experimenting with hybrid capitalism, so to speak. You should see it today. You should see how Shenzhen looks. I went there, everybody was in bicycles. And I have photographs to prove it. You should see it now. It's larger than New York. Skyscrapers, you should see the powerhouse, what they're making over there. Mm-hmm. You could do a lot in Laredo, but everybody has to work together. Yeah. Everybody's going in different directions, and then the city and the county aren't working together. Example is breaking the interlocal agreements because the leadership isn't there. You need a strong person to go there with a strong will and who has a core belief, in something larger than yourself, an almighty God that, we're all going to answer to sooner or later, but we're going to answer to the man upstairs.
Here's where it's at. Before you had Bossyism that we were talking about, okay? You had your Judge Raymond, and you had...
Yeah, and that's what my book was about.
You had Martin.
It was the Raymonds at the time, and it's the Cajuns, and they had all this...
And Mayor Martin.
Yeah.
And then you had Trevino in the schools. I mean, they controlled everything. I mean, if you did not vote this way, if you did not fart in this direction, you had trouble on you.
You couldn't get jobs.
Plain and simple. But that ended. But the mentality continues.
It does.
But now the mentality splintered all over the place. And what happened, it's in the city, it's inside the little departments. It's not the mayor, it's not the city councilman.
Yeah.
It's in the department heads. And in the county, it's split up. So they're trying to do this type of Bossyism when they don't have that effect.
The county, the problem with the county, you still have the spoil system there in the county. So it's a little bit different than the city. The city, you have a professional city manager. They separated. You don't have a strong mayor type council where the mayor runs everything like they do like in Chicago or but the county...
And it was done for that purpose because you had a mayor at one particular time that's the way he controlled it.
So the county has that problem right now because you're not going to have the way it's set up. But you do have checks and balances with the different, offices and so forth. And that's why you had all these lawsuits, between the judge, the county judge and all these other elected officials because he can't tell those other elected officials how to run their office.
That's exactly right. That's
but
exactly
they did
right.
it on. But that's the way the Constitution was set up for checks and balances, which is another thing I don't like. I think he's dismantling certain constitutional offices. That when he started stealing employees from the county attorney and putting them in that business development office and doing their own thing, because he doesn't get along with the county attorney, and so therefore he wants his own attorney. I mean, all of that is just a waste of taxpayers' money.
I thought the county attorney was the one that protected the whole county out of lawsuits and so on and so
Well,
forth.
they're
That
supposed
happened.
to,
They're
but you know,
supposed to, right?
Yeah, but I mean, they had some kind of a problem, so the county attorney got in a lawsuit with the county judge and the commissioners.
But that's not the first time this has occurred. He's not the first judge or the first county court that uses that. It's been going on when I came back in 2000.
Yeah.
You know, they will always go elsewhere. And that duplication of departments or that needs to stop.
It needs to stop. You know, it does. And so I think it all starts with freezing those taxes, because you force things to happen, because you're going to tighten the belt. So you force things to happen. Right now they're playing a Game of Thrones. It's a Game of Thrones over there to see who's going to be king. Everybody wants to be king over there. You know, I just want to go in there and set it right. I'm not the type. I don't want a title. I don't want to be cutting your ribbons. That's not for me. Let the mayor cut the ribbons. Yeah, I'll have to do a few things if I get elected, but that's not for me. I don't want a title. I don't even want. Some people they buy a title because they have the money to buy a title. But that doesn't qualify you to sit there in that seat and preside over the commissioner's court when you're incompetent and you don't even know what you're doing. You're just making a mess of things, and that's what they've been doing over there.
You know, here's my point of view. I'm going to vote for the person that's going to stop the little abuse under the color of law from individuals. If a person or a small business stands up and voices an opinion, all of a sudden they have inspectors left and right.
That's
or deputies walking in there harassing their family. Or guess what? All of a sudden your son is in high school and all of a sudden he gets arrested because they found a marijuana seed over there. You know, they're playing with people's lives. People here, they threaten you and they think they have the muscle. They have yet to meet somebody that's going to kick their fucking ass, knock them in the ground, and say, you do that again, I'm going to beat the shit out of you in your own kitchen. That's what needs to stop. Okay? That abuse of power. And that abuse of power will eventually happen.
Because they're violating people's First Amendment rights.
But here in Laredo, they're afraid.
They don't want dissension.
You see, people in Laredo are afraid.
Yeah.
They'll go over there, they'll stop you, they'll stop your wife, they'll harass your kid, they'll do this. It happens all the time.
What they need to do is get themselves into this culture of debate, like the Greeks did, where you debate. You debate the issues, and you do it calmly, as with respect to each other, and you don't.
They also knew how to fight, but that's a difference.
But in other words, they had honor.
When you have two men that know how to defend themselves, the debate occurs.
Yeah.
But when you have one guy that does not, and the other one does, and says, you know what, in front of me is a wimp with a big mouth. The alpha's kind of just going to look at you and just going to say, okay.
Yeah.
But then, here they start yelling and raising up their voice. Fine, and that's part of society. But what I'm saying is, and I'm going to tell you a story and I witnessed. I had a friend of mine, compadre, who was sitting down. He's now a judge, Pepe Salinas. And we're joking around with him running for office, just joking around. And we were sitting down at a restaurant having coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking to a bunch of deputies at that time. And this is before Rick got involved. And he worked with them, of course, for the longest time, right? And we're joking around that he was going to run and all this other stuff. And one of the deputies was a female. She went outside. She texted. All of a sudden, here comes a crony and tells all of them to leave the restaurant. They left their food there.
Really?
We're just like, are you shitting me? I mean, are you that afraid? This is just a joke. Okay? And then later on, Rick ran against Garza and so on and so forth, you know? But when you have that much pull over somebody, do you really want to work in that type of environment?
No, nobody does.
Nobody does. You know, you work in fear.
But that's why you have to set the example. And I think right now it's rotten to the core over there. It's bad. You need to have a benevolent leader. That's what you need, a benevolent leader, someone who's kind.
No, you're absolutely
but
correct.
He's not going to put up with nonsense either. And you're not going to tolerate corruption. And you're going to do the right. You got to set the example. You got weak leadership right now. That's why it's rotten. And, you know, he's really, the county judge right now is really not really running the show. He's Kalo's puppet, everybody. That's what I hear on the street. I'm just telling you what I hear. It's not being negative. It's not, I'm just telling you facts. Well, the way I see it. The dynamics I see on that court. Set the leadership. And, you know, what they did to Leo was wrong. You'll see that video eventually. I'll put it on Facebook so everybody can see it and you'll see what I'm talking about.
You know, and that's wrong. The way you belittle somebody in that format.
You know, accusing him of theft and kicking him out, that's wrong. You know, that's just wrong. You know what? Why don't you let the man talk? Why don't you let the man speak? Why don't you debate it calmly? What's this thing? You're going to eject somebody from the court, and on his way out, you're accusing him of having his hands in the cookie jar. That's what he said. He said, it's not
who said that?
The judge. He told Leo, it's not my fault if they caught you with your hands in the cookie jar. That's what he told the auditor. And it's right there in living color, as they say. And it was a nasty display of a violation of the First Amendment and the Fourth Amendment, due process, everything. I mean, what they did. And then they tried to get him arrested. They wanted to get him indicted. Come on. That's the fear you're talking about. You're talking about fear. They were trying to jail this man. You're talking about the fear. He's the perfect example. This is what they do.
And no, believe me, I've seen it. I've lived it. And, you know, and I know some others out there that are now voicing their opinion are tired of it because they've lived it through their businesses.
You're fed up with it.
And, you know, and basically you're fed up. And it's not the judge, it's not the commissioners, it's not them. They have nothing to do with it. It's the other departments that are around there. Some of them wear badges. They should not be wearing badges.
And some of the departments, the other elected offices, you don't have any control who's in them.
Sure. No, you do. You have, because you go vote. We lose control when we don't go vote.
Yeah, you have control over those, but I'm talking the court.
Sure.
The court has it on the other departments, and there's a lot of problems there too. A lot of problems there. And there you can fix it, really fix it. But if you do that, it's contagious, because what will happen is it spreads to all the other departments, and eventually things start changing. That's why I say if I'm elected, I'm able to freeze those taxes. What's going to happen is it's going to have a positive effect on the other taxing authorities. It's going to pressure them to freeze your taxes.
Sure.
Because I'm only going to be able to do it for the county. I can't do it for the schools. I can't do it for the city. But, you know, I was studying last night the city budget, the CAFR, you know, the Consolidated Annual Financial Report, and they're bragging in their transmittal letter that they haven't raised taxes, they haven't raised the rate in 10 years. But that's not the way you calculate taxes. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm running the Truth in Taxation campaign. It's Article 8 of the Texas Constitution. It's there. It tells you how you calculate the taxes and why you have to post the rolling back rate, and why you have to post the effective rate, so you can figure out the relationship between this year's taxes and last year's taxes to see if you're paying higher. Mm-hmm. And, you know, people don't pay attention to the fine print. But I'm here to educate everybody. They raised your taxes 9.5%, and they can't blame the appraisals. Let me tell you, when the appraisals go up, it's a sign you have a healthy economy, okay? And it's one of the data sets that tells you you have a healthy economy. You're getting ready to sell your house. You want them high so you can make more money. You may not want them that way if you're buying the house. But all of that gets equalized if you do what I'm proposing, which is you use the effective rate. Everything gets frozen. So you don't let them raise it all they want. It doesn't matter. You're not going to pay more if you do it my way, which is the right way. It's not even my way. It's the Texas Constitution's way. If you use the effective rate, you freeze everything. It just makes the appraisals irrelevant when it comes to taxation. It doesn't make them irrelevant to the purchase and sales of property and everything else, but it will make it irrelevant in the terms of taxation. Not in calculating, but the net effect, if I'm able to freeze it.
Mm-hmm.
And so...
No, you're absolutely correct.
And I hope people listen to that. But if you want to pay more taxes, keep voting for the same people you've got in office right now. You know, but you're doing a big disservice to yourself and primarily to your family.
And folks, we're running out of time. We had a great conversation, learned a bunch. I want to thank you for enlightening us. And also, go out there and vote. We need to vote on these re-election.
Yeah, well, the day is not our election, not
but,
our.
You know, but the
day you have a runoff election, so that's going to be a lot of fun to see how that turns out tonight.
And it's going to be interesting, but do not get mad and just sit back and say, I'm not going to vote.
Yeah, go vote. If you haven't voted already, go vote.
The only thing that comes of age is when people go out and vote, and that's when change comes. If you don't vote, there's not going to be no change.
Yeah.
Until next time, I want to thank you for coming here.
Thank you.
Best of luck, and keep on going the way you are. And
it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. You know, I mean, that's the thing. At the end of the day, is to be able to laugh and say we're going to have fun. You know, it's democracy, man. We're not here in some third world country where everybody wants to kill each other. Well, we hope not.
You know, well, it will if it continues the way it's going.
Well, you got to let people speak. You know, people have a voice. You know?
And folks, and one more time, if you guys are afraid of speaking out, don't be. If you're afraid of people coming and knocking at your doors, if you have a small business, all of a sudden you see a bunch of inspectors or badges coming in and harassing you. Fight back. Fight back in the courts, fight back in the polls, and if need be, kick their ass. That's what needs to happen. Okay? Stand up. And I'm afraid these folks are this far from seeing a revolution in the United States. It's going to be very, very detrimental to the change and the future of our nation, because we've been abused way too much. And people are now saying, not anymore. And that's why we have a president that we have. And that's why there's going to be a lot of different changes coming in. We have to make America great again. I like that slogan. Of course, you know, he's up there. He came up with it. He's the brains. But we have to do the same thing to Laredo and Webb County. We have to make Laredo.
Got to work together, you know, instead of fighting. You know, there's been too much fighting in this court. We've got to work together.
There's some great ideas, but there's an old saying in Spanish that says, ¿cómo? No hagas una cosa que se parezca buena, que sea mala, y una mala que parezca que sea buena. And don't do something that has a bad appearance that is good. That's basically what we need to do here. So, you know, do not use an issue to make money for a friend that's an engineer, so on and so forth, you know. If it's for safety, do it. If not...
Yeah, there's a lot of political expediency going on. You saw it last night on City Council.
That was just...
you know, it goes
it's
on.
a joke.
Yeah, so people see through that. People know if you're a phony. They know if they know, I mean, what's going on. People are smart. We just need people to go vote. That's what we need.
People need to go vote. And so today's runoff elections. Until next time, we'll see you here in Gloves Off.
Thanks a lot.
Peace.